And hello, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, the amazing Coach Elix. And with me today is no one. I am doing the show by myself. Can you believe this? And yes, before you all go hysterical, I haven't got a divorce from Steven the Medium. He hasn't left me. We haven't had a fight or anything like that. Many of you may know already that Stephen has been sick. When after we came back from California, he got laryngitis, severe enough that he actually lost his voice. Severe enough that he had to cancel just about every client that he had last week, including a pretty big show. So that I'm telling you right now, Steven is not one to cancel any commitments. So the fact that he had to do that meant that he was clearly not able to talk. And of course, we thought, well, I know he uses a microphone. Will that help? But the truth is, his voice was so um, strained, if you will, with the laryngitis that we just thought, you know what, doing so could even damage your vocal cords, so it's not worth it. We have to cancel. People, I'm sure people understand. You have stars, especially music stars, who cancel concerts because they also get laryngitis and they can talk or sing. So Steven can do neither. And believe me, he's a really good singer. He's got a very high pitch, and right now nothing's coming out. So I told him, I said, as soon as he can sing me a tune, then I'll know he's back into business. But anyways, I'm all by myself, but don't despair because I also have an amazing guest coming in. She is really a leader. I call her a leader extraordinaire. Somebody I've known for many years. And I know she is going to be a source of inspiration for every single one of you listening today. So her name is Dow Talker. And today we're going to be talking about breaking barriers, women in leadership, balancing act, and the path to success. And I'm sure if you're a female at home listening and you can relate to this conversation, in particular, balancing act, being a mom, being a wife, or sometimes being a single mom and being a leader, having to work or having to, do whatever you got to do to provide for your family. It's certainly a balancing act, but Dow Talker does that, and she also does it in a way that inspires those who have the privilege and the opportunity to be around her. Me included, by the way, me included. So we're going to have an amazing show, and I'm super excited about that. But Mr. Mark is also in the house. Mr. Mark Clark, how are you? I did tell him to be prepared to answer my questions because, Stephen is not here. Do you think he's prepared to answer my questions? Of course not. So I'm assuming Mark Clark is listening, but he's our producer. He's really my right hand as it relates to producing the show. But he's here with us, and I'm super excited to have him here. So, anyways, Mark, if you're there, just let me know that you are there, so I know that you're here. But anyways, so let's see. So let's start with, we had an amazing vacation. We had an amazing trip to California, and it was a little bit of business and a little bit of fun. So we went to Los Angeles for the business end, and Santa Monica. We stay in Santa Monica, which is one of my favorite places in the world. And the business end went incredibly well. I mean, I'm telling you, Stephen and I in the upcoming weeks will be sharing pretty amazing news with all of you. So if you follow us, if you have seen our lives, if you follow, Steelex Sundays with Steelex, and all the shenanigans that go on, you definitely want to tune in because it's really exciting news. So that happened, and so we spent 4 days in the Los Angeles area, and then we drove to Palm Springs, and we've been doing that for the past, I think, 4 or 5 years. Palm Springs is a gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous place. I don't even know the best way because some people say, well, isn't it just the desert? Well, it is, but it's not just the desert. There's something really magical. There's something really zen about Palm Springs. You literally, I don't know, like you just wake up and yes, you are in the desert, but the landscape is gorgeous. But that's the point. That's the part that I just find breathtaking. You're looking at the landscape, and in the distance, you see these amazing, gorgeous mountains covered in white snow. So it's the almost like the yin and the yang. You're in the desert, and then you see the mountains covered in snow. And we've been staying in this property for the last 4 or 5 years, and literally you don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to go anywhere because the property is so beautiful. And in fact, we've taken pictures there, and some people even ask, "Is that a backdrop?" Thinking that it was a fake um, landscape in the background, and I'm like, no, that's the real thing. That's exactly what it looks like. So it looks almost, it's so beautiful and so perfect that it looks almost fake. And this time around, unlike years past, where Steven had me going ragged, walking all over Palm Springs, looking for the Lucy statue, looking for um, the famous people that because Palm Springs in the old days was a very very famous. It still is Hollywood destination, but all stars like Lucille Ball, and of course I don't remember the name. Steven would if Steven was here, he would be listing all of his favorite people. They used to have homes in Palm Springs. Um, Bob Hope and Um, sorry. I'm sorry about that. I'm not quite sure. I just got distracted here. But anyways, they Stephen would have me walking ragged all over Palm Springs, looking for the statue or looking for the homes, and on Palm Springs can be actually pretty hot. But this time around, it wasn't. It was actually beautiful. The weather was beautiful. We, of course, the that portion of the trip was in celebration of um, um, it's celebration of our 31-year anniversary, and so yes, we're celebrating 31 years, April 8th, and I know some people have heard us talk about March 15th versus April 8th. We celebrate both. March 15th is when we got married, but we didn't have the privilege to get married when we first met because marriage was not legal in this country. And but then it was, and we got married March 15th. So we celebrate that day. But the day that is most meaningful um, to us is April 8th, and that's 31 year. And so we that was what we celebrated, and I can tell you we had amazing dinners. Stephen, by the way, surprised me with tickets to see Kathy Griffin or Griffith. I can't remember which one is right. And that was amazing. It was front row seats, and she was super funny, and we love her comedy, so it was amazing. And then, of course, we go check in the hotel. Now, mind you, this is a beautiful hotel, and they tell us, we're gonna give you a beautiful upgrade. And so we walked into this room, and the room is absolutely gorgeous. It's super big. It had everything and anything that you can imagine. And of course, Mr. Steven walks in, and says, "Oh, I don't like it." I'm like, "Why?" "Oh, because we're in the bottom floor, and I don't care for the view." So yeah, can you imagine? I know you can. Those of you that know Steven can absolutely imagine him not being happy with this absolutely gorgeous upgrade. So yes, I had to go back and request that they change us rooms, which they did. The reality is, I will say this: I will agree with him in regards to being in a higher floor. And the position of the room gave us access to just a breathtaking view from our room. And having said that, yeah, Stephen is a little bit, um, I don't know, spoil. With that, Mark. I don't know. Do you think spoil fits the definition that what I'm trying to say? I think those of you who know Stephen would say he's a little spoiled.
Yeah, a little bit. um, well, he knows what he likes, and that's a good thing.
Yes, he does know what he likes, and that's a good thing for who? Because sometimes it's not a good thing for me, just saying. Um, anyways, but we had a magnificent time. The one thing I will say, LA traffic, it's a real thing. Oh my God, I can't even tell you, LA traffic is horrendous. It took us close to over 4 hours. I would say 4.5 hours to get from Los Angeles to Palm Springs. I'm not quite sure because Coachella was not until the week after, so I have no idea why there were so many people on the road going from Los Angeles to Palm Springs. But then again, coming back because we drove, our plane left from Los Angeles. It also took us about 4 hours to get back from Palm Springs to Los Angeles. So that is one thing I do not want to repeat of. I hate being in a car. Oh, and the other thing is, by the way, they gave us an electric car, a Tesla like. It was not a Tesla, but it was a Tesla like, and it was actually pretty nice. I'm not gonna lie. I if I wouldn't mind driving a Tesla. However, you have to understand how to manage driving an electric car, and this is the first time, so I didn't understand. You have to be able to have to charge your car, to know where to charge it, especially when you're going long distances like Los Angeles to Palm Springs. So that was a fiasco, and that contributed to the nearly 5 hour trip from Los Angeles to Palm Springs. So, having said that, it's still one of our most favorite places in the world, and it's a place that I would go again and again and again and again. So, having said that, I think we're gonna take a short break. By the way, I do want to say a shout out to cousin Eva, who is came back after a long time. She dissed us for a long, long time because of work and all the stuff that she had to do. But she's finally coming back. She came back and she's visiting, and she's gonna stay here for a few days, which is awesome. So we're gonna be doing all kinds of stuff with cousin Eva Milagros from Puerto Rico. So, and then having said that, we're gonna take a short break, and when we come back, we are gonna talk to the amazing, extraordinary woman leader, inspiring source, Dow Talker, about breaking barriers. What is it like for women in leadership? What is it like to balance everything that it's required for them to do, and what is the path to success? So if you want to join the conversation, 508 222 1320. We're going to take a small break and we will be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host, Coach Helix, and with me, it's no one today because my husband, Stephen the Medium, who's my amazing co host, is recovering from a really bad case of laryngitis and he lost his voice. And he's resting it because he has a show tomorrow and a busy week ahead since he had to cancel all of his events last week. But today we have an amazing show. We have an amazing guest, a leader extraordinaire, somebody I consider a personal friend, Dow Tucker, and we're talking about breaking barriers, women in leadership, balancing act, and the path to success. So let me tell you a little bit about Dow. She's a senior executive with over 20 years of extensive knowledge in human resource and management. She has a successful track record in leading HR services with mergers and acquisitions, people integration, among many other areas concerning people at the workplace. And she's currently the Chief Administrative Officer for Jet Health in Texas. Look, the corporate office is in Texas. Now, Dow is somebody that I know, and I've absolutely witnessed this. She has impacted thousands of people that have had the privilege to work with her over the years, and I include myself in that number. So I am super, super proud to have this amazing woman who, at some point, by the way, her dad actually said to her she should be, when is she running for president? And she should be running for president. That's how impactful this woman is. So, welcome, my friend. Miss Dow Tucker is in the house. Hello.
Hi there, my dear friend Elix. Happy
How
Friday.
how are you, Dow? It's so great to have you here with us.
I'm so glad to be here.
So, Dow, I don't know how I can tell people about you because you are a phenomenon. You are a force to be reckoned with. Your story is super inspirational, spanning for over 2 decades. So let's start with that. Why don't you tell our listeners, who is Dow and what is she known for?
Wow, who is Dow? Um, Dow is a mom, a wife, an executive, a motivator, an influencer, a cheerleader. Um, I have spent over 27 years of my career serving others in healthcare and enjoy it quite much. It's just who I am. It's my core. I'm a servant by heart, and I love to just spread joy to others.
And I think it's quite an accurate description. So you describe yourself as a motivator, an influencer, and a servant by heart. How do you define that? What is it that calls to you about being a servant by heart? Tell people how you define that, Dow.
Yeah, so being a servant is being selfless. It's putting
Mm,
others before me in the sense that I push them beyond their best, to their best potential. I have, and being a servant and being an executive leader that motivates and encourages is also having the responsibility of others as well. I have teams of people that have worked with me throughout my career who I still have relationships today, and they still want to follow me today. So being a leader that people want to follow.
mm. And you describe yourself also as a mom, as a wife, and as a leader. How I mean that's a pretty that's a big combination. How do you manage all of it, Dow?
I'm asked this question all the time. A matter of fact, I was asked this question this week by my CEO, Larry Nabb, who's phenomenal, by the way. And he said, "How do you do this? How do you wear all the hats?" And I said to him, "It's like Nike. You just do it, right? If you stop and you think about it, for some, you might have a nervous breakdown when you see how much is on your plate. For me, it satisfies my spirit when I am meeting the needs of others, whether it is spending quality time with my husband or my children, or coaching a new team member with the company to promote within the company. That's where I get fulfilled. That's where my satisfaction lies for me as being a servant, is what can I do so that I can make a connection with others and just bring out the best of them, right?
But let me ask you this, Dell, because I think oftentimes people think of being a servant, it's only doing for others. But I would argue that you cannot do for others if you're not doing for yourself. So how do you balance doing for others while also doing for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, three things that I think is really important, especially being a woman in leadership. First and foremost, you got to take care of you. I had a
Mm,
wise woman tell me once, Dow, you have everyone drinking from your cup. What's in your cup is for you. Everyone gets the overflow. If you don't take care of yourself, you're no good to anyone else. And that's something that I've learned. And as women, we are very selfless. We're nurturers. We want to take care of others all the time. And so I've had to learn throughout my career that, number one, I have to take care of me. The second thing is that you can't compromise who you are. You have to be authentically you. When you try to conform or change to fit into any environment, you can't sustain that for too long, and it's a recipe for disaster. And any woman in leadership, if you are sitting at a table where you feel as if you can't be authentically you got to move to a new table. It's not the table for you. And the third, which is really important for a woman in leadership, is having a wonderful home support. Um, Women in leadership, we have a lot of challenges. There's a lot of expectations. There is nothing like having, disruption in your home life. You could have a great work life, but if there's disruption in your home life, you're still not balanced. I have a wonderful home support system. I have a husband who clears my path for me so that he minimizes the stress. I have children who, so blessed to have beautiful children who take pride in the work that I do. And so they make it easy for me. So just having that home support, the cheerleaders that you have on your team so that you could do the great work that you do, and enjoy and love, but also making sure that you're taking care of you at the same time is key.
Yeah, well, I first of all, I need to make a note that uh, yes, you are married, but you are going to have a formal wedding next year, correct?
I am.
And who's going to marry you? Just can you just tell people again?
You and Steven are
That's
officiating
right.
the wedding.
That's right. So these woman goes all out. So just saying, having these two extraordinary um, men uh, marrying you, it's what a privilege for us. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that yes, that's what we're up to. Um, Dow, but let me ask you this. Um, there's women listening to this show, but there's men listening to the show. Um, h- when you say balancing being a mom, a wife, being a leader, do you need to have a high level position to consider yourself a leader? What if there's
No.
that single mom doing all kinds of stuff, or a single dad for that matter? Would they would that qualify as leadership as well?
Absolutely. Leadership is not necessarily in a corporate environment. Leadership is in your community. Leadership could be in your home, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's leadership is the responsibility to lead others, right? It's not about power. It's not about authority. It's about having the responsibility of others.
Yeah. And I know that you have people who have inspired you. Who have those people been?
Oh yes. I have been so blessed to have a lot of mentors throughout my career, and a lot of CEOs and a lot of leaders who have believed in my skill set and had given me opportunities that I didn't even ask for. But my parents are the ones who really believed in me, inspired me, and pushed me. My mom immigrated during the Vietnam War, grew up very poor. And her story is a story of its own. It could be a movie, right?
Hmm.
And my dad, who's a retired sergeant major in the Marine Corps, both my parents taught me that whatever you do, whatever you touch, it is always with excellence. And my mom, she would always tell me, are you number one or you number two? And that could be a good or a bad thing, but she always pushed me to be the very best at anything that I did. Going back to the text message that I got from my dad this morning to tell me how proud he was of me, and he's asked me for years, when are you going to run for president? Because they still see me and believe in me to kind of be that number one. And so my parents have inspired me the most. I've watched them work very hard, in their careers. I've watched them also leading, not only my dad leading his soldiers, his troops, my mom leading in the mess halls on the military base, teaching Marines how to cook. Um, I've just watched how they treated their employees, their staff. I remember my mom would get bonuses, and she would take her bonus and she would split it amongst her staff because she would say, I am nothing without my team. And she always taught me, my mom and my dad, that when you take care of people, they will take care of you.
Mm.
And that's why I have the following that I have today.
And that is a true statement. When you take care of people, they will always, always, always take care of you. Dell, there's many more questions, and Dell and I have known each other for many years. We talk very frequently, but honestly, this is the kind of conversation that I could have with you that we've had time and time and time and time again, and it never gets tiresome. So I'm really happy to have the opportunity to share you with our amazing audience. So, Dell, hang in there. We're gonna take a small break, and when we come back, we'll continue to have a conversation with leader, mom, wife extraordinaire, Dow Tucker about breaking barriers, women in leadership, balancing act, and the path to success. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, an amazing friend, an amazing woman, an amazing leader who I've known for many years, Dow Tucker, who is currently the Chief Administrative Officer for Jet Health in Texas. And we're talking about breaking barriers, women in leadership, balancing act, and the path to success. And Dow, as you know, Stephen is not here with us because he's resting his voice, but that doesn't mean that he's not sending me questions to ask you. So I have one question for him, and I'm gonna frame it before I ask the question. I'm gonna say this: you are a female. You identified as Black and also Asian, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And you work in a heavily male dominated business. So here's the question: have you ever felt as an outsider or not respected when interacting with these men in any of the roles that you've had over the years? And if so, how have you handled that? And also, how would you, if anyone who's listening connects to that, what would you tell them?
Yes. So the answer is yes. I have worked in environments where I felt that I wasn't respected or my contributions weren't respected for sure. Um, it does take me back. If I can give you a little bit of data, it takes me
Yes.
back to a post that I read from Ariana Huffington about women in leadership, and it really resonated with me. And with this survey about women in leadership, 28% of women were represented in the C-suite. And out of that 28% of women, only 6% were women of color.
Wow.
Now, when I saw that data, it really hit home for me as being an Afro-Asian female,
Yep.
a woman of color sitting in a predominantly white male space, right? And of course, working in environments where I've had partners that were not so nice to me. How I handled that is just continuously, it's what I've said in the first segment, is just being my authentic self. I found myself at times trying to conform, trying to conform to the way that I felt or what I thought they wanted me to be. And I found
Mm.
myself to be very unhappy because I couldn't be authentically me. I couldn't produce my best work under those new terms of trying to conform to what I believe they wanted of me. And so I wasn't producing my best. And so my advice to women in leadership is that when you sit at a table, it goes back to what I said, you have to be brave enough and don't feel like you're giving up to change to a new table. And there were instances in my career where I have gone back and forth and even had called you, Elix, and said, I don't know what to do here. Help guide me. Where I felt like I was giving up on me by walking away from the table. And truly, there was something else better on the other side. It feels great when you work into an organization that accepts you for who you are and what you can bring and can see your value. And those organizations are out there where you're sitting at the table as a woman or a woman of color, and you don't feel either of those things. You feel like you are part of a very diverse team of people who respect you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And by the way, I would say that compromising who you are, however you define that, right? In your case, you define yourself as a servant, but compromising your authentic you is not an option. Should never be an option. In one thing that I would remind, if you're listening and you're connecting to this conversation, I always say, and Dow, you and I have had this conversation many times, there's consequences to everything. There's consequences to
Absolutely.
all the choices that we make. And we often are concerned about, well, I don't want to compromise, but if I do this, then I may lose my job. If I say X, I may be alienated, I may be discriminated, or whatever the conflict may be, right? But what I always remind people is, look, there's always a much greater consequence, which is when you say nothing, when you compromise that authentic you, that is a much greater consequence. And what I'm hearing you say is don't ever compromise that. Be willing to
Absolutely.
walk the hard time. Go ahead, Dal.
Absolutely. And I'd like to add, it is okay to say it is not okay for you to speak to me in that manner. You do not have my permission to speak to me in that manner. You do not have my permission to treat me in this manner. You must stand for something, and you teach people how to treat you.
Yes. Yeah. And what's that? I don't know who deserves the credit for this, but somebody said if you don't stand for something, you can fall for anything.
Absolutely.
And I remind people that all the time. Yeah, it's scary at times. Yes, there's consequences to standing for something, but man, there are greater consequences, for
When
not
you don't.
standing when you don't. Absolutely. Now, let me also ask you. So I know Steven is giving you a standing ovation, because I know he knows you and he's such a fan of yours. So thank you for that, and I know that our audience is also thanking you, Dow, as well. So let's go back to your statement, being authentically you. Now, I do a lot of work. What I call it a leadership legacy, right? And
Mhm.
you can call it a vision, you can call it a purpose statement, you can call it whatever calls to you. But one of the things I hear coming from you, authentically, loud and clear, is that you know what's your why. You know what it is that drives that for you. So, and you talked about being a servant, but how else would you define that why for our
Mhm.
audience?
I've thought about my why, and I'm gonna say this: why not? My why is
Mm.
why not? Why not be a part of the 6% of women of color sitting at the table? Why not lead a team of people or put myself on a track to potentially being CEO of a company? Why not learn a new trade or topic, or continue my education? I mean, my why is why not. For me, Elix, growing up, it was always my parents instilled in me that there is a whole world out there for you. The sky's the limit, and you can choose whatever you want. It's totally up to you. And Larry Knapp, my CEO, he describes it well. He says it's will and skill. Do you have the will? Do you have the skill to do it? Right? And so, I mean, my why is why not? Before my mom passed away, God rest her soul, she sat in her hospital bed and she was giving me and my siblings the business. Like, she was trying to give us the last words. And I'll never forget when she got to me, and I was bracing myself, like, oh my gosh, what is this woman going to say to me? And she said, you know what's wrong with you, Dow? And I'm named after my mom. And I'm like, Mom, like, is there something wrong with me? And she said, you love people too much. And she said, that's your problem. You love people too much. And I said, Mom, I'm a chief people officer. My job is to take care of the people who take care of our people. If I take care of the employees, they'll take care of our patients. And my mom, and that's when she was giving me a lesson, because she saw that I wasn't taking care of me in the process. I was very busy taking care of others, and that's how I got my fulfillment. But that goes back to my why. From the time that I can also remember, not only was I, a young girl who thought the skies was the limit for me, but I always wanted to, make sure that I root for the underdog, create a pathway or opportunities for someone else. I mean, I just love people. And I want to be, for those that, could be going through something, they could be contemplating suicide, or they think that they are not able to get to the next level. I just want people to know that there are folks just like you and I, Elix, because you're one of these people, that
Yes.
there are cheerleaders out there.
Yes. Absolutely. as I'm listening, you remind me of the distinction. I use this distinction in my program quite often: listening to connect. Listening to connect is not listening to confirm. It's not listening to verify. It's not listening to, um, to understand. Listen, all those listenings are important, but listening to connect is listening to get to somebody else's world. And I have watched you. I think that's one of the qualities that you do so, so, so well, Dow. You listen to connect, and it comes from that place of wanting to be a servant. It comes from that place of wanting to do for others. I'll never forget. This is early on when I first met you. There was this young man who was struggling, and he was going to be fired, by any standard, and you went out of your way to understand what was happening. And one of the things that was happening is that he couldn't get to and from work. And so he was doing the best he could, but he didn't have a vehicle. And you went out of your way to make sure that he got a vehicle. And I thought to myself, how many people do? You remember this, by the way?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
And his wife
And
had cancer, and he couldn't get to the appointments as well. And just for the audience, with that particular company, we had a fleet of cars that we were trying to sell. And typically, we take those cars that we lease and we sell it back to enterprise or the leasing companies. And I went to my partner, the CFO, and said, we have a group of employees who are probably struggling. 80% of our population are minimum wage workers. Will you be opposed if we create the opportunities for them, and then we can set up payments out of their paycheck that is affordable? They're probably not credit worthy, so this is a great opportunity for them. And I called him up. One, I had to give him the crucial conversation about performance. I understand your situation, but we do have a business and we do need you to perform, but we're going to be here. We're a family and we're going to support you. And I'll never forget when I sat with him and gave him the list of cars that he could choose from of many makes and models and said, we got you. And when to watch that man break down and crying on my shoulder, I knew that was confirmation that everything that I live for in terms of taking care of others and people and making opportunities happen, that was one of those.
yeah, and that's an example of being a servant. That's an example of being for others. And that's an example of really being authentically you. Doubt you're amazing, but we do need to take another break. I want you to hang in there because I want to have a few more questions for you before we complete our show. So hang in there, Dow. Let's take a small break. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, without a co host because he's recovering from laryngitis, but he's here in listening and in spirit with all of us. And today we have an amazing guest, Dow Tucker, who is a mom, a woman, a leader, an extraordinary human. And we're talking about breaking barriers, women in leadership. And we do have a caller, so let's start with that, Dow. Hello, this is Get a Grip with Coach Helix. Who's this?
How's it going? This is the future first man, the husband of the amazing Dow Tucker.
Oh my God, that is amazing. Well, hello,
Oh,
sir.
wow.
Yes, yes, yes. I want to thank y'all for putting a lot of pressure on me. I'm not the most color coordinated guy, but it seems like with the future that I have coming up, I'm going to have to do better. So I will answer the call.
And you can certainly validate that everything we just said about this extraordinary woman is the truth.
Yes, yes, yes. So, with some of the things she was talking about, as how the first thing was about how she's motivated and inspired a bunch of people, and the whole car thing. That was, I've never heard that story before, but that is not surprising that she does that. Sometimes we'll talk, and she'll tell me about a situation that happened, and even if 2 days ago she was like, "I don't know if I can do it," she will find a way and she will get it done. And she does find that satisfaction and a smile on her face shows it all when she has been able to help somebody. And she does get the whole, thank you for believing in me, and I appreciate you being in my life. And so that's one of the things that puts a smile on my face when I hear those stories.
And honestly, the apple doesn't actually fall far from the tree. And honestly, she wouldn't marry just an ordinary man. That I know for sure. So the fact that she chose you, just as you chose her, means that you have many of the qualities. And I know that for a fact because I got to meet you, Lando. You have many of the qualities, extraordinary qualities that she has. So thank you for so much for taking the time to acknowledging this amazing wife of yours.
Oh, that is the least that I can do. Along with changing, along with changing other people's lives. I mean, she has made a big impact in my life as far as relationship. She's inspired and changed me. Picking battles, knowing how to love, caring more, considerateness. All these things have improved. Me for me personally, which has now culminated in me having having a very good marriage. And so for
Awesome.
that, I applaud
How
her and I
sweet.
appreciate that she chose me.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, so sweet.
you're amazing. You guys are amazing. Both of you. And I love you just as much, Lando. I mean, not actually no, scratch that. I love you, but you still have to earn the same amount of love that I have for Dow. Just saying. So just saying. So you got time to work on it. So, so,
I
but
accept the challenge, sir.
yeah. But listen, actually, Lando, you can stay here because we're coming to the top of the hour, and Dow, I do want to say something. So Stephen actually sent me a little note here that he wanted me to tell you before we close. He says, I hope you periodically take a minute to absorb all the love, emotions, and admiration from all your ancestors in spirit who are watching you and are so incredibly proud.
Oh, yes, I do. And I talk
Take
to them every
that
day.
in. You do. Take that in, Dow. Take that in.
Yes, I do.
Awesome. Now, I also want to say before we close. So, Dow, I've learned a lot, and I can tell you this woman is absolutely a servant. So, we met recently in Arizona. Arizona, not a cold state, is a hot state at times, and for the very first time, I've always wanted to volunteer at a soup kitchen, and Miss Dow got me to go into a soup kitchen with her team, and I've never worked harder in my life. I was sweating bullets because I ended up behind the stove, And and I thought to myself, only Dow Talker would get me to, I was looking really good when I started, and I was a literally hot mess when I was done. But Dow, honestly, I can absolutely honestly say that was one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever, ever, ever had in my life. It
Yes.
was, and I have you. I'm even getting emotional because I have you to thank for that. Because I always talk about walking the walk. Walk. You got to walk the walk. You got to talk the talk, and you got me to do something I've always wanted to, but I just never did the work to get there. And you got me there, and it was just amazing, Dow. Thank you so
You know,
much.
oh, you are so very welcome. I tell my team all the time, like when I would start team meetings, I would always say, have you changed a life today? And we would get on a call and we would talk about whether it was an interaction, a conversation. I mean, when you can motivate people, when you are there for people and you can motivate them, they can do so much. And so in companies, if you wrap your arms around your staff and you treat them well and you show them how much they're valued, they are going to bring your company to success. And I'm going to say this for those in leadership. I have a dear friend and a wise woman by the name of Tracy Cunningham out of Memphis, Tennessee. She was an area director for a company called Caregiver. She's still there today. And I'll never forget when I was going through a time where I felt like I had so much responsibility on my plate. And she said to me, she said, Dow, and it's in the Bible, in Luke, to whom much is given, much is required. God has given you so much that he requires so much from you. And because of that, and it stuck with me, I stopped complaining about the responsibility because
Mm,
he's given this to me and he demands so much for me.
wow. That in and of itself, it's just so inspirational. Now I want to close with this question because earlier you talked about um, numbers, right? And you mentioned that only 6% of women, of the 23%, 20, I think it was, you said 23 or 26% of women that are in leadership, only 6% look like you. Why,
Yes.
why do why do you feel it's important that women, and in particular, women of color and women of different backgrounds be represented at the head
Mhm.
of the table?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you know, there is so much that a company can do with diversity of thought, diversity in appearance, diversity in background, experiences that bring innovation. I do think that women, and especially after the pandemic, I do think that women have taken a step back and said, is it really worth it to me? I do
Mm,
think that women sometimes question, the glass ceiling. And I'll never forget, I had a partner who gave me a gift, and it was a necklace shaped circle glass, and it was broken. And he said, Dow, you have broken the glass ceiling. Be proud of yourself. And I said to him, I didn't know there was one.
mm,
I think when women believe that there aren't any limitations, and they believe in themselves. And again, they have the support system. I think they will show up and they will be present and they won't be afraid for applying for those opportunities and pledging forward. It's okay also for women to say, that's not for me. So I do think that some of the 6% could be that women have chosen that they would like to not sit at the table because they would rather not, right? Because there's a lot of challenges and things that come with being a C-suite executive. I do think that there are some organizations that haven't afforded the opportunities. But I also think that there's women who don't believe that they're good enough to even seek out those opportunities. And if they have the mindset, as my parents instilled in me, that there are no glass ceilings, I mean, we'll have more sitting at the table.
that's fabulous. And she's talking to you. I know if you're listening and you're feeling, you're getting this conversation, Dow's words are reaching your soul. She's talking to you. Dow, how can people connect with you? How can people get a hold of you if they want to, connect, if they want to know more about you?
Yes, you can certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me, Dow Tucker, at Jet Health in Fort Worth, Texas. I love to create the connection, and then we can certainly go from there.
And don't worry, Dell will be back as a guest because there's plenty more that we can be talking about. Dell, you're amazing. I love you. You're just awesome. Lando, we love you just as much. And thank you for being an amazing guest. And we look forward to having you back. And Stephen and I look forward to marrying you very, very, very soon. So thank you. And for those of you looking to connect with me, you can find me at Coach Helix anywhere on social media. And if you want to connect with Stephen, Stephen the Medium, that's all you have to type, and you get all about Stephen. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dow. And have a wonderful weekend.